to get down to business? Join seasoned entrepreneur, community leader, and Army veteran Scott Shalom Klein, who will take you behind the scenes with those who work in America's small business scene and speak with leaders making an impact, creating jobs, and telling their story in entrepreneurship. So let's get down to business. On AM 560, The Answer, here's your host, Shalom Klein.
And indeed, we're all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk all about small business. Tonight, we're going to begin with a phenomenal researcher and behavioral scientist. More on that in just a moment. When faced with complex challenges, I know many leaders' natural instinct is almost always to add. We add more meetings, more processes, more software, more tasks to our already overflowing calendars. But in both tactical operations and strategic command, adding complexity often leads to organizational indigestion, burnout, and distraction. True mastery requires us to step back and harness the untapped power of doing less to achieve more. So as mentioned, I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Leidy Klotz, who is a professor of engineering and architecture at the University of Virginia, where he co-directs the Convergent Behavioral Science Initiative. He's the author of the acclaimed book, Subtract: The Untapped Science of Less, 3 years of groundbreaking research from Lego experiments to complex urban design. Leidy has revealed why our brains naturally default to adding complexity, and we can train ourselves to subtract our way to better decisions, stronger leadership, and clearer lives. Leidy, welcome to Get Down to Business.
Thanks, Shalom. It's great to be here.
In your research, you discovered that when humans try to solve a problem or improve a situation, again, our default setting is almost always to add rather than subtract. What's happening in our psychology that makes subtraction feel so counterintuitive, and why do we systematically overlook it?
Yeah, the first step in any kind of design decision or trying to make the world a better place is you have to think of different options, right? And so what's happening in our psychology is in that first step, our brain initially thinks, what can we add? Which isn't necessarily a problem, right? We have all these decision-making heuristics, but what happens is we think, what can we add? And then we move on without even considering this whole other category of options, which is like, what can we take away from what's already there? And that leads to the indigestion that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love in hearing about your story is I know that you famously started studying this through a very simple experiment with your young son using Lego. So walk us through that light bulb moment and how a child's building blocks revealed a massive blind spot in corporate boardrooms and organizational leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been interested in like lean manufacturing and Six Sigma and some of these continuous improvement methods. But the understanding like the behavioral roots of it, I was playing Legos with my son, and we basically had a bridge, so a very simple bridge structure, and the one of the columns was longer than the other column, so the bridge wasn't level. And I went to grab a block behind me to add to the shorter column. But by the time I had turned back around, he had subtracted a block from the longer column. And what was so powerful about that, in addition to being a 3-year-old outsmarting a PhD in engineering, is that it very closely, what I did in that moment very closely mimics what we tend to do in these situations, which is like, my first thought was add. And if he wasn't there, I would have added and moved on without even considering this other option.
What does your son say about all this?
Oh, he loves it. He loves it. And he will love that. It's like, I'm on the radio in Chicago, and he'll go talk to his friends. He's 11 now. And so it's like, it's great fodder for him. Yeah. He's not awesome. He's not a good subtractor, by the way. He just played a lot of Legos, and this was the one time when
you could learn lessons from anywhere. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, and the big lesson is like, play with your kids. Right?
There you go. Maybe that will be our next segment together, Leidy. That's awesome. Your son is growing up in an age where generative AI and modern technology make creating content, generating ideas, and adding tools almost effortless. So how is this frictionless ability to add worsening organizational friction, and why is subtraction becoming the single most critical leadership skill of the modern era?
Yeah, and I think, I saw a report recently where AI, they replicated our experiments in AI, and of course AI did the same thing, but also AI like multiplies it, right? Because if you have this tendency to add, and then AI makes it easier to add, and then everybody's doing it, you have to do more and more and more, and you're on this like kind of treadmill that you can't get off of. And I think that's where I mean, business leaders know this, right? If everybody's doing something, then there's a market of opportunity for people who go in the other direction, right? Or who look at the opportunities that other people are missing. I think the other really important thing with AI and with any kind of technology is people will ask, well, Leidy, what should we add or subtract, right? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know your context. And what gives you the answer to what you should do is like, what's your mission, right? Like, what's your goal? And I think if we kind of orient to those goals, it gives us clarity on whether, the goal is not to add more. The goal is something else, to provide value to the customers, something along those lines, right? And then you can evaluate whether adding or subtracting gets you there. But certainly AI makes it really easy to turn our brains off and use this tool that has the same adding instincts that we humans have and enables the adding instincts that we already have. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. In business and leadership, there's often a fear, I hear about it from our listeners, that taking things away, whether it's a policy, a product line, or a recurring meeting, it signals weakness or loss. So how can an executive frame subtraction not as a sacrifice or failure, but rather as a deliberate act of focus?
Yeah. I think you partly answered it, right? It's like you can be very explicit about like why you're doing this and what it's going to give you time to do. But the fundamental challenge here, right, is that when you take something away, it becomes invisible. And when you add something, it's visible, right? So the meeting that you take away could be an act of focus, but a week later, people don't realize that you did that thing and it's not sending this signal. So I think, figuring out ways to incentivize it for yourself and for the people who work with you and for you, and I don't mean it has to be financial incentives, but it could just be, you give people a project and say, hey, I'm giving you a project. I know I'm adding a lot to your plate. What can I take away? Right. And now you're starting to bake in the culture, this idea that taking things away is important and a way that is valued in your organization to make things better.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I'm chatting with Dr. Leidy Klotz, professor of engineering and architecture at the University of Virginia, where he co-directs the Convergent Behavioral Science Initiative. He's the author of the book that we've been chatting all about, Subtract, the Untapped Science of Less. So, Leidy, you argue that relying on willpower alone to stop overcommitting doesn't work, and we have to build an architecture that forces subtraction. What are tactical tools like stop doing lists or default expiration dates on projects that leaders can implement immediately to protect the team's energy?
Yeah, I think those are great examples. So stop doing list is exactly what it sounds like. So but it's also like tying it to the adding, right? So it's like do the stop doing list when you're doing your to-do list, right, for the week. And when you want to, when you're considering new initiatives, tie thinking about initiatives that you want to sunset to that, right? So maybe it's a rule where if somebody suggests something new, they have to suggest two things to discuss to stop doing. And so the key thing there is like inserting it when you're thinking about it after listening to this episode. Insert this into your decision process in the key decision points. Reverse pilots are another great one, right? It's like we're so reluctant we're so quick to start something new and see how it works. But what about stopping something new? And you can always bring it back if it turns out to be catastrophic. So but build it into your process.
Yeah, it's really good. So for the business owners and managers that are listening right now who feel completely buried under a mountain of tasks, meetings, and commitments, what's one single thing that they should boldly subtract from their life right now to regain their focus?
Television, if you're watching television. I mean, I think it's like this thing that we spend a bunch of time on that could be subtracted for most people and make their lives better. I'm somewhat laughing because I think, I don't have a specific thing that would work for everybody except that. But I do think if they can think about it across like your calendar, but also information, right? It's so easy there's so much abundant information now, and maybe cutting out like one information stream or like being really deliberate about the types of information that you're allowing to come into your mind and to work with is another way that we can subtract that would have benefits, especially to the type of person you're describing, right? Who is, very curious about the world and wants to learn as much as possible. But we do have to be deliberate in what we let in, and then also like question our mindsets too, right?
Sure.
Like what am I thinking that no longer holds true, or that I want to, subtract from my mental models?
Well, thank goodness he didn't say radio or podcast. So good call on that one. Once again, I've been chatting.
I have said that on a TV interview once, but
well, that's good. That's good. We're on the same page. Well, I'm chatting with the author of Klein's book, Subtract the Untapped Science of Less. Leidy, where can we find the book? Where can we get in touch with you?
My parents gave me a good new Google name, so leidyklotz.com. I have a Substack. I'm on LinkedIn, relatively active there, and the book's available anywhere books are sold. And I just published a new book too called In a Good Place. It's about our relationship with our physical surroundings. So, but all that stuff, really easy to find on the internet.
Awesome. Leidy Klotz, thank you so much for joining us. Quick break here and get down to business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. We'll be right back.